Most adults find out they have a blood sugar problem the same way. They go to their annual checkup. Their doctor orders routine blood work, and somewhere in the results, a number comes back higher than it should be. The A1C, the fasting glucose. And suddenly, a conversation begins that feels like it came from nowhere. Insulin resistance, the underlying metabolic shift that drives blood sugar problems, does not arrive quietly and then suddenly announce itself in a blood test. It develops slowly, over months and years, and long before it shows up clearly in laboratory numbers, it is already leaving signals in the body that most people either miss entirely or attribute to something else. Signals that feel like ordinary aging, like stress, like poor sleep, like just not being as young as you used to be. Take Margaret, for example. She is 62 years old, lives in suburban Florida, and has been managing prediabetes with metformin for the past 2 years. But Margaret's story did not begin with a diagnosis. It began years earlier, with a collection of experiences she had been quietly living with and dismissing one by one. Stubborn belly weight that would not shift. Skin changes her dermatologist called minor. Afternoon energy crashes she blamed on her schedule. A tiredness that sleep never quite resolved. None of these felt like blood sugar to Margaret. Many adults tell me they feel more in control when they can see the pattern written out clearly. So I created a simple protocol you can print and follow quietly at home. Before we get into the 7 signs, let us spend a moment on why insulin resistance so often develops silently and why standard testing can miss it in its earlier stages, when the body is already showing signs that something is shifting, for those who know what to look for. Sign number 1 is a thickening waistline that resists your efforts. We discussed visceral fat in detail in a previous video, but it belongs at the top of this list because it is often the earliest and most visible external sign that insulin resistance is developing, even when all blood markers are still in the normal range. When insulin levels are chronically elevated, even subtly so, the hormonal environment of the body favors fat storage in the abdominal region specifically. The result is a waistline that gradually expands despite reasonable dietary and exercise efforts. If you have noticed your waistline changing in ways that feel disproportionate to your eating and activity habits, and if that change seems stubbornly resistant to what has worked for you in the past, insulin resistance may be the explanation that has been missing from the conversation. Sign number 2 is persistent fatigue that sleep does not resolve. This is one of the most universal and most consistently overlooked early signs of insulin resistance, and it is so commonly attributed to age, stress, or busy schedules that it rarely triggers a metabolic investigation in the way it deserves to. Here is what is happening. When insulin resistance is developing, the cells are not receiving glucose efficiently. Insulin is present, glucose is available, but the door between them is stiff and unresponsive. The result is that the cells are not being adequately fueled even when the bloodstream contains plenty of glucose. This cellular energy deficit is felt most acutely in the tissues with the highest energy demands. The brain, the muscles, the organs responsible for sustaining daily function. A sense of depletion that is not fixed by rest. A feeling that the energy is somehow not quite there, even when circumstances suggest it should be. If this description resonates with your experience, it is worth adding to the picture you bring to your healthcare provider, rather than simply accepting it as the price of getting older. Sign number 3 is skin changes, specifically darkened patches or skin tags. The darkened patches are called acanthosis nigricans. They appear as areas of slightly thickened, velvety, brownish, or grayish discoloration, most commonly in skin folds and creases. These patches develop because elevated insulin in the bloodstream stimulates the growth of skin cells in these areas. They are a direct and visible response to chronically high insulin levels, which, as we have discussed, can exist for years before blood sugar itself rises noticeably. Skin tags, those small, soft, flesh-colored growths that appear on the neck, underarms, and other areas of friction, are also associated with elevated insulin and insulin resistance. They develop through a similar mechanism. Like acanthosis nigricans, they are often dismissed as harmless cosmetic concerns. And while they are not dangerous in themselves, their presence is a signal that is worth taking seriously in a metabolic context. If you have noticed either of these skin changes, and they have not been discussed in the context of insulin or blood sugar, it is a specific and meaningful question to bring to your next appointment. Sign number 4 is strong and persistent carbohydrate cravings, especially in the afternoon and evening. The truth is considerably more biological than that. When insulin resistance is developing, the cells are not receiving adequate glucose despite its presence in the blood. The brain, which depends on a steady glucose supply more than almost any other organ, detects this cellular fuel shortage and responds with a powerful drive to take in more carbohydrates, more quick sugar, more fast fuel that might temporarily correct the perceived deficit. This is not a character flaw, it is a metabolic feedback loop. And in the context of the other signs on this list, particularly if you are also experiencing fatigue, belly fat accumulation, and energy crashes after meals, persistent carbohydrate cravings are a meaningful signal of an underlying insulin dynamic that deserves attention. Sign number 5 is difficulty concentrating, mental fogginess, or what many people describe as feeling mentally slow. The brain is the most glucose-dependent organ in the body. It accounts for roughly 20% of the body's total glucose consumption, despite representing only about 2% of its weight. And it is acutely sensitive to any disruption in the quality, consistency, or efficiency of its glucose supply. When insulin resistance is developing, the brain's access to glucose becomes less reliable, not absent, but less precise, less steady, and less efficient than it should be. The result is the cognitive experience that so many adults over 50 describe as brain fog. The thoughts that come more slowly, the words that take a moment longer to retrieve, the sense of mental effort that tasks which used to feel automatic now seem to require. This cognitive dulling is often attributed entirely to aging, and aging is certainly a factor in cognitive changes after 50. But insulin resistance contributes to cognitive function in a direct and measurable way that is distinct from normal aging, and that responds to metabolic intervention in ways that pure aging-related changes typically do not. Sign number 6 is elevated triglycerides, or low HDL cholesterol, on routine blood work. When insulin resistance is present, even in its earlier stages, the liver's response to elevated insulin is to produce more triglycerides. These are fat molecules that circulate in the blood and whose elevated levels are a well-established indicator of insulin resistance and metabolic dysfunction. At the same time, HDL cholesterol, the protective form, tends to decrease in the presence of insulin resistance. If your routine blood work has shown this pattern, and the conversation with your doctor focused primarily on statin medications rather than on underlying insulin metabolism, it may be worth asking specifically about the triglyceride to HDL ratio as an indicator of insulin sensitivity. A ratio above 2 is considered by many metabolic health researchers to be a meaningful early warning sign that deserves attention beyond the standard cholesterol conversation. Sign number 7 is high blood pressure that is new or gradually worsening without obvious cause. Here is the mechanism. Elevated insulin levels in the blood, which, as we have discussed, can be present for years before glucose levels become abnormal, affect the kidneys directly. Insulin signals the kidneys to retain more sodium. More sodium retention means more fluid retention. More fluid volume in the bloodstream means higher blood pressure. The result is blood pressure that trends upward over time in a person who is eating reasonably, exercising moderately, maintaining a healthy weight, and has no other obvious explanation for the change. Now, what do you do if several of these signs resonate with your experience? The first step is to bring them together as a picture rather than presenting them individually. Many of these signs, taken alone, do not trigger a metabolic investigation. Fatigue, a thickening waist, some skin changes, brain fog. Taken together, in an adult over 50, they tell a coherent story that deserves a specific metabolic evaluation beyond the standard A1C. Ask your healthcare provider about fasting insulin levels. This test is not always included in routine blood work, but it is the most direct measure of whether your pancreas is working harder than it should to maintain normal blood sugar. Ask about your triglyceride to HDL ratio. Ask about body composition assessment if your weight is in the normal range. And ask about trends in your fasting glucose and A1C over the past several years, not just whether they are currently within range. From a lifestyle standpoint, the foundations we have discussed across this entire series apply with particular relevance here. Building and preserving muscle through resistance training directly improves insulin sensitivity. Protein-forward meals moderate the insulin demand placed on the pancreas at every meal. Short walks after eating activate the glucose clearance pathways in muscle tissue. Protecting sleep quality supports the hormonal environment that insulin sensitivity depends on. And managing daily stress keeps cortisol from adding to the metabolic burden. From a nutritional standpoint, certain key nutrients support the cellular machinery of insulin signaling in ways that become particularly important when that machinery is under strain. Berberine supports healthy glucose metabolism and has been studied for its ability to improve cellular insulin sensitivity through pathways that address the root mechanisms of insulin resistance. Chromium supports insulin receptor function at the cellular level. Magnesium supports insulin signaling, moderates inflammation, and promotes the restorative sleep that metabolic health depends on. Alpha-lipoic acid supports mitochondrial function and cellular energy production from glucose. B vitamins are essential to the metabolic pathways that process every meal. And vitamin D supports insulin sensitivity in ways that are particularly relevant given how commonly it is deficient in adults over 50. Other nutrients like gymnema and eleuthero can further aid glucose uptake and adaptation, enhancing how your body responds to the insulin signaling challenges that produce the 7 signs we have discussed today. Because obtaining meaningful amounts of all of these nutrients through food alone is genuinely difficult for most adults over 50, many find that a well-formulated, comprehensive daily supplement that brings these key nutrients together provides the reliable cellular foundation their lifestyle efforts need. For those in similar situations, if you would like to explore what that kind of comprehensive nutritional support looks like, and what others navigating early insulin resistance in their 50s and 60s have found helpful, there is a resource in the description below where you can explore at your own pace. Before we close, the important reminder. This video is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any health condition. The signs we discussed today can have multiple causes. Please speak with your healthcare provider about your specific situation, particularly if several of these signs are present and persistent. Your body has been communicating with you. Through the waistline that shifted, through the fatigue that sleep does not fix, through the skin that changed, through the cravings that feel bigger than willpower, through the fog that has settled over your thinking, through the blood pressure and the cholesterol numbers that have been quietly moving in the wrong direction, asking for support in the only language it has. Margaret recognized her signs, eventually, and then she did something about them. You do not have to wait for the A1C to tell you the story your body may already be trying to share. You have 7 new things to listen for now. Start listening. Thank you for being here with Truewell Prime. Take good care of yourself today.